Hello and welcome to Ever Chosen Minis. Today I have kind of a strange video for you. We are going to be combining the grim darkness of the 41st millennia, and this is going to be melding with Sonic, admittedly a kid's game and cartoon. Now, what kind of inspired this is I was talking to my wife and, it's just like, hey, like, what would it take for you to play a game of 40K with me? As we all might try from time to time with our partner. And she had mentioned like, "Hey, is there anything like robot like Sonic, like Eggman?" So the idea struck there. These robots, the Castellans, are perfect. They already have egg-shaped heads. They have like the little screens on their face, kind of just begging for some cartoony faces to be drawn on there. And they're pretty simple, so it's not overly complicated, not sharp and pointy. Most things in Sonic are pretty rounded, so this works perfectly. So in this video, pretty much going to be showing you what I did to get the robot ready, how I painted it, to kind of meld those themes. I think it's 50-50 dark and then cartoon. And I'm going to make her a little army out of this, so there'll be some more follow-up videos, kind of making some more of these kit bashes out of the Adeptus Mechanicus here. So just relax, sit back, and I will show you every step it took to make these. And if this inspires you for your own kind of wacky creative projects, all the better. Now, to prep this miniature and to get it in the theme of Sonic, we're going to start by removing anything overtly Imperial related. So it's going to be like the Aquila on the front, the skull and cog on the backpack. We're just going to remove that. The process is easy. We start by clipping off as much as we can without damaging kind of the shape that we want underneath it. And then once we use our clippers to remove the bulk of it, we're just going to start shaving down as much as possible with the X-Acto knife. So here, you're just going to see me running the blade along the side and then even carving some of the bigger pieces off as best as I can. This should be mostly flat at this point, and you can usually call it done, but like with me, I'm a little messier with it, so I just came in with a sanding stick and just shoved that down. So once it's really smooth and flat, I just took a brush and took off kind of all the residue and the shaved plastic off to get it ready. And then we can go on to the last and most important modification here, which is going to be the mustache. So I was kind of figuring out what I wanted to do with this. It is not as easy to make a mustache as I figured. I thought maybe, oh, there'd be a bit or something to be perfect. So once I went through my bits, didn't find anything, I settled on this thicker paper. Now, paper's not going to do really well for rigidity, but we'll fix that here in a second. What you'll see me doing here is just coming in with a hobby knife and cutting the overall shape of the mustache here. It took me a couple tries and some of them did fail. You'll see that the bottom little mustache part sometimes comes off of these things. Um, that's totally fine. So, little trial and error, but once I had, 4 pieces that I was satisfied with, it was time to put them on the model and also give them some rigidity. So the way I did this was by laying down the mustache pieces, and I took some PVA glue and just made a little spread over the top of it. This was kind of soaked down into the paper and gave it some rigidity that it really needs to stay put. Now, once I let that dry a little bit and they were a little tougher, I do the same thing with super glue as I'm putting it on the model. So you see here, I just kind of put it at the bottom of the face area, put a little dab of super glue, and then I also take the super glue and put it over the surface of the mustache. So that's going to give them even more rigidity and kind of make it where it's not going to just fall off or break really easy or, God forbid, fold in half in some weird way if it gets dropped. So it's basically just a part of the model now. And this is all the modifications we're going to do before we start painting the model. Alright, so before we just dive into painting, let me show off the reference here. Now, this is a toy from the new Sonic movie. It's Eggman's robot, and it's really perfect for everything we want here. The general shape of both robots is very, very close, so we can copy this scheme one for one. We're going to take the gray and just turn that into a true metallic kind of undercoat for the joints and in-betweens of the armor plating. And then for the armor plating, we're just going to keep it simple. We're going to keep it bright red with the yellow accents. So keeping this in mind, this is what we want the end product to resemble as much as possible. And I'll show you how I achieved that and the steps I took to get this model from, just concept all the way to the finished product. Alright, now to get started on this paint job, we're going to be priming all the models here black, and then we're going to start with a dry brush of gunmetal. This is an Army Painter's war paint here, and it works super well. This has been my go-to metal for a little while now. It's just a good kind of neutral tone, and I think it dry brushes super well. Now, why we're doing dry brushing specifically is really just to avoid having to do any kind of contrast paint or wash to make it stand out. We're going to naturally get shadows by starting black and just kind of going over the top with this metallic. Now, if you overbrush in some areas that you want to be darker, feel free to go back in with a wash, or even some speed paints works really well if you want to be a little bit more precise to get those a little bit darker. And it's all to taste here. So for me, I just like this one simple step of dry brushing. And it's going to make everything a lot easier. Now, when we move on to red here, we're going to be using 3 colors. Super simple, just one base and 2 highlights on this. But this is by far the most time-consuming part. Now, I start with Slaughter Red. It's a speed paint by the Army Painter and is by far my favorite red to use ever. If you do it just over white, it is a great color just by itself. Here, it's not going to work as well as just the main color because we're going over metallic, but it's a really nice base. It's a really deep red. It's going to give us a really nice foundation. It covers super well. So just take your time, be neat with this. It does take a while to avoid all the metal parts that we don't want to cover up with this. But once you're done with that, we move on to flat red. Now, this is a Vallejo paint. It's already pretty bright on its own, but it doesn't cover super well. So you'll see here, it takes me a while to build up layers. Now, this is a really good technique to learn and master. It is a little bit more time consuming. It's not just as simple as just shoving a single coat on there and calling it good. You'll see here that it may look completely done when I do one coat, but it comes off a little splotchy, and you'll see it just gets subtly brighter and brighter even before I change to the overall highlight color that we use, which is going to be another Vallejo color. This one is Scarlet. It is a super bright red with a lot of orange in it, but it's perfect for this. And we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to be layering this red on there, slowly building up those highlights to the point where we get this really vibrant color that we're after. Now, this is going to help it stand out against this even more brighter color, which is going to be pure yellow. Now, yellow is kind of tricky. It takes a lot of layers to get good coverage, especially since we're using kind of a black and metallic undertone. It doesn't leave a lot of room for error. So this one is just kind of an exercise in patience. It took about 3 layers of each of these yellows to get what I wanted. Now, I started with a Everland Sunset. This is a Citadel base color. And I just put this over the 2 parts that I really want to be yellow, which is the little shoulder pads and the rim around the wrist for the gun arms. So a few coats of this, and then because it's kind of a cartoony paint style, I didn't focus too much on the tops on the yellow, like I did the red where there's kind of a granular highlight. This one is just pure Flash Gets Yellow going over everything. This one also took about 3-4 coats. But the result is really good. It's really striking, and it matches pretty much exactly the color from our reference, which is definitely what we wanted. So now that we've done all of the base coats that we want, we're just going to move over to some of the smaller details. So not too much work left to do here. Now, the easiest one of these details to knock out is going to be the mustache. I just use a deep brown from AK, and this works really well. This brown covers super smooth, and so this step just gets knocked out with a few strokes. And moving on to some of the more important details, we're going to be focusing on the face and the little Eggman icon that we're going to freehand on the side of his arm. Now, we're going to start by kind of prepping the face. We want to use Pro Acryl Ivory, and we're going to put that into the recesses of the mask here. You're going to see around the edges where the screen is, and on the front where we want the little face to be, we're going to add the eyes and the little angry eyebrows here, and that's just going to get everything prepped so that we can start adding the glow. Now, for the glow, we're going to start by using Speed Paint Beowulf Blue. If I had a brighter blue, I'd recommend that, but this is what I had. So this is a really transparent paint. I got very little in my brush, and I just wipe this over everything that we did white. Now, because it is a deep blue, it's not as vibrant as I want it to be, but it's going to just start adding those blue layers that we need to make it glow a little bit without the need of an airbrush. So we go back in. This is going to be the final step for this, is going to be Duncan Blue. This is from AK as well, and this is just something we're going to put really thin and into the recesses, as well as going over the eyes again. Now, to enhance the effect, what we want to do now is just take a very, very thin down ivory from before and just tap that into the recesses. This is just going to give it that pure white light, make it look like it's emitting, and that'll kind of round out the face and finish that out for us. Now, I kind of botched this here. My freehand is not very good, but let me show you the reference picture that we're aiming for, and I'll show you just a quick video here of me going through and trying to copy that onto their arms. So this is going to tie it into the Eggman universe, get his logo on there, as he is a doctor who mass produces these. He would definitely have that there. The last thing we want to do, just put Eggman's initials there in the middle. And, now that we have that free space after taking off the Aquila, and that wraps them up. We have done everything from, starting with the base coats, gotten those nice vibrant colors, given it a little detail here. This paint job didn't take too long overall. It was pretty quick, but I think it was really imaginative. Now, with all that done, that brings us to the end of the video here. I'll be showing a beauty shot of this just kind of spinning around here so y'all can see the end result. You may notice the bases here are themed Sonic as well. And if you go back a few days, I posted this on my channel, and you can see how I made these bases that kind of tie it even more into Sonic. So this project was super fun. I hope my wife enjoys playing with these eventually once I get a few more painted. Um, and, I think everyone should be looking for these opportunities and inspirations if you love to paint, to just try new things. I really thought, I have these Adeptus Mechanicus models kind of sitting around. I'm like, one day I'll just like grimdark them up, maybe dark Mechanicus. But stuff like this just made me realize that, you can find inspiration everywhere, and some of these ideas may be wacky and they might not be worth doing. Um, but some are. So I encourage you to go ahead and try out any idea that you might have on some miniatures that you're willing to, put into the creative pot, as to say. But thank you so much for watching this video, for spending time with me and letting me show you, the whole journey that it took to make these. But have a good rest of your day. Thank you for watching Ever Chosen Minis.